Okay, if there's one task in the whole CFI practical test that's going to define your legacy as an instructor, this is it. We're diving deep into Task F, Teaching Risk Management. And look, this isn't just about checking a box on your Checkride. This is about building the bedrock habits that create pilots who are actually safe. So let's get right into it.
This quote from the FAA really gets to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? The instructor is the central figure. I mean, think about that. You are the central figure. That means every single thing you do, or maybe even what you don't do in that cockpit, it's all shaping the kind of pilot your student's going to be long after they've left the nest. The weight of that responsibility is huge, and it all starts on day one.
Look, we can't ever make flying totally risk-free. It's just not possible. But we absolutely can and must manage that risk. And the data doesn't lie. The single biggest threat in the sky isn't a mechanical failure. It's us. It's the human factor. One bad decision, a little bit of complacency creeping in, that's when things really go sideways. And that's exactly why your most critical job isn't just teaching them how to do a perfect steep turn. It's teaching them how to think like a pilot.
So let's kick things off by really defining your role here. Think of yourself as the safety keystone. You're that essential piece that locks everything together, connecting pure flying skill with solid judgment. Without you, the whole thing can fall apart.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? Well, you're going to equip your students with a specific set of tools. Let's open up this risk management toolkit and see exactly what you need to be teaching.
When you boil it all down, risk management is really just a simple, repeating, three-step process. First, you identify the hazard. Basically, what's out there that could bite me? Second, you assess the risk. You ask, okay, how likely is this to happen? And if it does, how bad is it going to be? And third, you mitigate the risk. You figure out, what am I going to do about it? The key here is that this isn't something you do once during pre-flight. It's a constant loop running in the back of your mind. And that's the habit you have to build in your students.
Now, to nail that first step, we really need to be clear on what a hazard even is. You know, it's easy to think of the big stuff, like a giant thunderstorm on the horizon, but it's so much more than that. It's any potential condition. It could be a seatbelt that's just a little bit frayed, or maybe a radio call that didn't quite make sense. And, just as important, it's that little voice in your head telling you you're just not quite on your A game today. Getting your student to spot those subtle hazards, that is absolutely critical.
So how do you teach someone to systematically find these things? Well, that's where the PAVE checklist comes in. This is the framework for every single flight. It's brilliant in its simplicity. It makes the students stop and ask 4 key questions. P for pilot. Am I good to go? A for aircraft. Is the plane ready for this? V for environment. What's the weather, the terrain, the airspace looking like? And finally, E for external pressures. Is there anything or anyone pushing me to do this flight when maybe I shouldn't?
Okay, let's zoom in on that P for pilot. The tool we use here is the I Am Safe checklist. And you have to teach this as a moment of brutal, non-negotiable honesty with yourself. Before you even think about touching the airplane, you have to ask, am I dealing with any illness? Am I on any medication? What's my stress level? Have I had any alcohol? Am I suffering from fatigue? Or am I dealing with some heavy emotions? You've got to hammer home that a yes to any of these isn't something to brush off. It's a big, flashing red light that means it's time to make a tough but safe call.
All right, so we've got the toolkit. We know the acronyms. But just knowing what to teach, that's really only half the job. The true art, the mark of a great instructor, is in how you teach it. So let's talk about how we take this stuff from a PowerPoint slide and make it real in the cockpit.
So when do you teach this stuff? The answer is always. This is not a one-time ground school lesson you check off a list. It has to be a continuous loop. You're talking about it in the pre-flight briefing, you're pointing it out and reinforcing it in the air, and you're analyzing it in the post-flight debrief. It has to become the very language you speak for every single flight lesson.
And here's the difference between good and great instruction. Take a look at this. On one side, you have passive teaching. Always check the weather. Okay, sure. But on the other side, you have scenario-based teaching. Hey, the forecast shows thunderstorms building up this afternoon. What are our options? What's the one thing we'd see that would make us say, nope, not going? See the difference? The first one teaches a student to follow a rule. The second one teaches them how to think. You're forcing them to be an active part of the decision, not just a passenger. And you have to adapt how you teach as your student gets better. In the beginning, yeah, they need simple, hard and fast rules. We do not fly into clouds, period. But as they get more skilled, you have to start introducing the gray areas. You move from being a rule giver to a problem poser. You challenge their judgment with those messy, real-world scenarios that you're just not going to find in a textbook.
Okay, up until now, we've been focused on the student, but now we need to talk about the other side of the cockpit. We need to talk about you. It's really easy to get so wrapped up in managing the student's risk that you forget being an instructor comes with its own unique set of hazards, and you're the only one who can manage them.
I mean, let's be real for a second. The amount of stuff going on in your brain as an instructor is just massive. You're flying, you're teaching, you're grading their performance, and you're trying to predict what they're going to do next, all at the same time. You always have to be ready for that unexpected input, that missed radio call, and you have to handle it without missing a beat. It is a really demanding job.
So, let me ask you this. Your student is under the hood, totally focused on keeping that needle centered. Who's looking outside for other airplanes? The answer, 100% of the time, is you. When their world shrinks down to the size of an instrument panel, and trust me, it will, your world has to expand to see everything else. That is your absolute non-negotiable duty.
Remember, you're not just managing a machine, you're managing a person. So when your students start showing one of those hazardous attitudes, the macho or invulnerability stuff, that attitude is a hazard right there in your cockpit. And your job is to spot it, call it out, and teach them the antidote to shut down that dangerous line of thinking.
So what does this look like day to day? Well, here are some best practices. First, plan on them making mistakes. Expect it. Second, give them the space to make those mistakes, and more importantly, to correct them on their own, as long as it's safe. Third, you got to stay plugged into how they're doing. Are they getting frustrated, overloaded? And fourth, always be ready to step in, smoothly, calmly, and ready to turn it into a learning moment.
All right, let's bring this all home and talk about your lasting impact. Because at the end of the day, students learn way more from what you do than from what you say. It's your actions that build a real, lasting culture of safety.
This really says it all. Being a professional is being safe. They're the same thing. Every single time you do a thorough pre-flight, make a sharp radio call, or calmly handle a change in the weather, you're teaching a lesson. You are a walking, talking example of what a professional pilot is supposed to be.
You have to live and breathe the habits you want to pass on. That means your head is on a swivel, always scanning for traffic. It means you enforce a sterile cockpit during critical phases of flight. No excuses. It means every time you exchange the controls, it's a clear, positive transfer. When you do these things without fail, they become second nature to your student too.
So, in the end, mastering task lift, it's about so much more than just passing your check ride. It's about answering this one question. Every pilot you send out into the world is going to carry a part of you with them. Your habits, your discipline, your attitude about safety. Your legacy gets built one safe flight, one well-trained pilot at a time. So the only question left is, what's your legacy going to be?